The dust from his horse's hooves had barely settled when Liam Hawthorne saw the woman doubled over on the porch, crimson spattering the weathered boards beneath her feet. He had been riding for 3 days straight across the California plains, following a trail that led him to this remote homestead just outside Paso Robles in the late spring of 1878. The ranch sat alone against the rolling hills, its modest house and barn speaking of hard work and harder times. Liam had only meant to ask for water and perhaps a place to rest his mare, but the sight of the woman collapsing against the porch rail sent every other thought from his mind. He dismounted in one fluid motion, his boots hitting the ground as he called out, "Madam, madam, are you all right?" Even as he asked, he could see she was not. She lifted her face toward him, her skin pale as milk save for the bright spots of fever on her cheeks, and when she tried to speak, another cough racked her body. More blood came with it, staining her hand where she pressed it to her mouth. Liam took the porch steps 2 at a time. "Easy now," he said, reaching her just as her legs gave out. He caught her before she could fall, lowering her carefully to sit against the wall. Up close, he could see she was young, perhaps 23 or 24, with dark auburn hair that had come loose from its pins and eyes the color of sage in summer. Those eyes focused on him with a mixture of fear and something else, maybe relief that she was not alone in this moment. "The doctor," she managed between shallow breaths. "Need the doctor." "Where?" Liam asked urgently. "Where is the nearest doctor? Town, Paso Robles, 5 miles. Each word seemed to cost her dearly. Liam looked around the property. The place appeared well kept but deserted save for this woman. "Is anyone else here? Your husband, family?" She shook her head weakly. "Alone. Brother went to Sacramento, month ago." A month. She had been alone and sick for God knew how long. Liam made his decision in an instant. "I am going to get you inside, then I am riding for the doctor." "Can you tell me your name?" "Rose. Rose Garrison," she whispered. "Rose, I am Liam Hawthorne. I am going to help you, I promise." He lifted her as gently as he could, startled by how light she was, how fragile she felt in his arms. The front door stood ajar, and he pushed it open with his boot, carrying her into the dim interior. The house was simple but clean, with a sitting room that opened into a kitchen, and a hallway that led to what he assumed were bedrooms. He carried her to the nearest bedroom, laying her on the quilt-covered bed. She looked even paler against the dark fabric. "I will be as quick as I can," he said, pulling the blanket over her. "Is there anything you need before I go?" "Water," she breathed. "Table." He saw the pitcher on the bedside table and poured water into a glass, holding it to her lips. She drank a little, then turned her head away, exhausted by even that small effort. Liam felt his chest tighten with worry. He had seen sickness before, had lost his own mother to consumption when he was 15, and the signs were terribly familiar. But he pushed the dark memories aside. Rose Garrison was not going to die, not if he could help it. He ran back outside, swinging onto his mare with practiced ease. The horse was tired, but she responded to his urgency, breaking into a gallop as he turned her toward Paso Robles. The 5 miles felt like 50, but he made the ride in less than half an hour, pushing the mare as hard as he dared. Paso Robles was a modest town, with a main street lined by wooden buildings that housed a general store, a saloon, a hotel, and other establishments necessary for frontier life. Liam pulled up in front of the general store where a man was sweeping the boardwalk. "The doctor," Liam called out. "Where can I find the doctor?" The man looked up, startled. "Doc Brennan. His office is 2 buildings down, the one with the green door." Liam was already moving, his boots pounding the boards as he ran. He found the green door and burst through without knocking. A man looked up from a desk piled with medical texts and papers, his gray beard and spectacles giving him an air of learned respectability. "Are you the doctor?" Liam demanded. "I am Dr. Brennan. What is the emergency?" A woman, Rose Garrison, out at the homestead 5 miles east of town. "She is coughing blood, has a fever. She is very sick." The doctor was already standing, reaching for his black leather bag. "Rose, I treated her father before he passed last winter. She was starting to show signs of lung trouble even then." "How bad is she?" "Bad," Liam said grimly. "She collapsed on her porch." Dr. Brennan grabbed his hat and another larger bag. "My horse is out back. We will go together." The ride back felt even longer than the ride into town, though they made good time. Liam's mare was flagging now, but she kept pace with the doctor's gelding, seeming to understand the urgency. As they rode, Dr. Brennan asked questions about Rose's condition, and Liam answered as best he could, wishing he had paid more attention to the details in his panic to get help. When they reached the homestead, Liam led the way inside, his heart hammering with the fear of what they might find. But Rose was still breathing, still alive, though she appeared to have lost consciousness. Dr. Brennan set to work immediately, examining her with gentle, practiced hands while Liam stood by, feeling helpless and strangely desperate. He barely knew this woman, had only just laid eyes on her less than 2 hours ago, yet the thought of her dying filled him with a grief he could not explain. "It is consumption," the doctor said finally, his voice grave. "Advanced, but not beyond hope. She needs constant care, medicine, good food, and rest. Most importantly, she cannot be alone. Someone needs to watch over her day and night for the next few weeks at least." Liam did not hesitate. "I will do it." Dr. Brennan looked at him with raised eyebrows. "You are a stranger to her, are you not? You do not even know this young woman." "That does not matter," Liam said firmly. "She needs help and I am here. I will do it." The doctor studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. You seem like a man of your word. I will show you what needs to be done." For the next hour, Dr. Brennan instructed Liam on how to care for Rose. He left medicines and tonics, showed Liam how to prepare broths and teas that would be easy on her stomach, and explained the importance of keeping her fever down with cool cloths. He also warned Liam that consumption was often contagious, that he was taking a risk by staying. "I understand," Liam said. "I am staying." After the doctor left with a promise to return in 3 days, Liam found himself alone with Rose Garrison, and a responsibility heavier than any he had carried before. He pulled a chair close to her bedside and sat down, watching the shallow rise and fall of her chest, listening to the labored sound of her breathing. "You are going to get through this," he said quietly, though she could not hear him. "I promise you that." He had been a drifter for the past 5 years, moving from town to town, taking work where he could find it. After his mother died and his father drank himself into an early grave 2 years later, Liam had left his home in Texas and headed west, searching for something he could not name. Purpose, maybe. Belonging. A reason to stay in one place. He had not expected to find it here in a sick room, watching over a dying woman he did not know, but here he was, and here he would stay. The first night was the hardest. Rose's fever spiked just after midnight, and Liam spent hours bathing her face and arms with cool water, trying to bring her temperature down. She thrashed and muttered, lost in fevered dreams, and once she cried out for her mother. Liam held her hand and talked to her in a low, steady voice, the way he had once talked to spooked horses, telling her she was safe, that someone was there, that she was not alone. Toward dawn, the fever broke, and she fell into a deeper, more restful sleep. Liam slumped in his chair, exhausted but relieved. He must have dozed off, because when he opened his eyes again, the sun was streaming through the window, and Rose's eyes were open, watching him. "You are still here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam sat up quickly, reaching for the water glass. "I am. How are you feeling?" "Tired. Weak." She accepted the water gratefully, managing a few sips. "You brought the doctor." "I did. He says you have consumption, but that you can recover if you rest and take your medicine and let yourself be cared for." Rose closed her eyes. "My brother, Thomas, he should be back soon." "When did he leave?" 5 weeks ago. Said he would be back in 6 or 7 weeks. There was business in Sacramento about Father's will. She coughed, a wet, rattling sound that made Liam reach for the cloth to catch the blood. When the spasm passed, she looked at him with those sage-green eyes, and he saw tears there. "You should not stay. You will get sick too." "Maybe," Liam said, "but I am staying anyway." "Why?" The question was plaintive, confused. "You do not know me." Liam paused, considering his answer. "Because everyone deserves to have someone with them when they are sick." "Because I happened to ride into your yard at the right moment, and I think that means something. Because I have spent the last 5 years drifting with no purpose, and maybe this is why. To be here now when you need help." Rose stared at him for a long moment, and then, impossibly, she smiled. It was a weak, fragile thing, but it transformed her face, giving him a glimpse of who she must be when she was well. "That is either very noble or very foolish." "Probably both," Liam admitted, and was rewarded with a sound that might have been a laugh if she had the strength for it. Over the next few days, they fell into a routine. Liam learned the rhythms of caring for Rose, giving her medicine at precise intervals, preparing the broths and teas Dr. Brennan had prescribed, helping her sit up to eat even when she insisted she had no appetite. He kept the house clean, tended to the animals he found in the barn, a milk cow, some chickens, and Rose's elderly mare, and tried to make himself useful. Rose slept much of the time, her body fighting the disease that had taken hold in her lungs. But when she was awake, they talked. Liam learned that she had grown up on this homestead, that her mother had died giving birth to a stillborn child when Rose was 10, leaving her to help her father raise Thomas. She had been engaged once, to a man named William, but he had broken it off when her father became ill, not wanting to take on the burden of a sick family member. "I was angry at the time," Rose said one afternoon, propped up against pillows while Liam fed her spoonfuls of broth. "But looking back, I am glad he showed his true nature before the wedding. I would not want to be married to a man who abandoned people when they needed him most." Liam thought of William with contempt but said only, "His loss." Rose smiled at that. "What about you? Surely you have left someone behind in your wanderings. A wife, a sweetheart." "No," Liam said. "There was a girl once back in Texas, Sarah, but that was a long time ago before my parents died. She married a banker." "Do you regret it?" Liam considered the question. "No. I think we wanted different things. She wanted security, stability. I wanted adventure, I suppose, though I am not sure I have found that either." "What have you found?" Rose asked softly. He looked at her, at the way the afternoon light caught in her auburn hair, at the intelligence and kindness in her eyes despite her illness. "I am not sure yet," he said honestly, "but I think I might be starting to figure it out." When Dr. Brennan returned 3 days later, he was pleased with Rose's progress. The medicine was working, and Liam's dedicated care had kept her stable through the worst of the crisis. "You have done well," the doctor told Liam as they stood on the porch, giving Rose privacy to rest. "She is not out of danger yet, but I believe she will recover, thanks in large part to you." "She is strong," Liam said. "Stronger than she looks," Dr. Brennan smiled. "That she is. Rose Garrison has survived more than most people twice her age." losing her mother so young, nursing her father through his final illness, managing this homestead alone. She is a remarkable young woman. Liam found himself agreeing wholeheartedly. As the days turned into weeks, Rose grew steadily stronger. She was able to stay awake for longer periods, to eat more substantial meals, to walk from the bedroom to the sitting room with Liam's support. The blood in her cough lessened, then disappeared altogether. Color returned to her cheeks. And somewhere in those quiet days and nights, something shifted between them. Liam began to notice small things about Rose that had nothing to do with her illness. The way she hummed while he helped her braid her hair, melodies from childhood that she did not even seem aware of. The way her eyes crinkled when she laughed at his stories of his travels. The way she worried about being a burden even as she grew stronger, and how she tried to help with small tasks despite his protests. Rose, for her part, found herself watching Liam when he did not know she was looking. She noticed how gentle his hands were despite their roughness and calluses, how patient he was even when she was irritable from the confines of her illness, how he read to her in the evenings from her father's books, his deep voice making even dry passages interesting. She noticed, too, the way her heart seemed to beat a little faster when he entered the room, the way she found herself missing him when he went outside to tend the animals, the way she felt safe in his presence in a way she had never felt with anyone else. One evening, nearly a month after Liam had first ridden into her yard, they sat together on the porch watching the sun set over the California hills. Rose was wrapped in a shawl, stronger now but still regaining her stamina. Liam sat beside her on the porch swing he had repaired that afternoon, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "Thomas should be back any day now," Rose said, trying to keep her voice light even as the thought filled her with unexpected dread. When her brother returned, there would be no reason for Liam to stay. "I suppose he will," Liam said, and she heard the same reluctance in his voice. "You have done so much for me," Rose continued. "More than I could ever repay. You saved my life, Liam. Anyone would have done the same." "No," Rose said firmly. "They would not have. William certainly would not have. Most men would have ridden for the doctor and considered their duty done. You stayed. You cared for me. You have been here every day, every night, for weeks. That is not something just anyone would do." Liam was quiet for a moment, watching the way the fading light painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I stayed because I wanted to," he said finally. "Because from the moment I saw you on that porch, something in me knew I was meant to be here, with you." Rose's breath caught. "Liam." He turned to look at her, and the expression in his eyes made her heart race. "I know I have no right to say this. I am just a drifter, a man with no property, no prospects. But these past weeks with you have been the best of my life. You are the bravest, kindest, most remarkable woman I have ever met, and I—" He paused, seeming to gather his courage. "I have fallen in love with you, Rose." Tears sprang to Rose's eyes, but they were tears of joy. "You have a right to say it," she whispered. "Because I have fallen in love with you too." Liam reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, and cupped her face in his hand. "May I kiss you?" "Yes," Rose breathed, and then his lips were on hers, gentle and tender and full of promise. It was Rose's first real kiss, and it was everything she had ever dreamed a kiss could be. When they finally pulled apart, she was smiling through her tears, and Liam was looking at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "I do not have much to offer you," Liam said, still holding her face in his hands. "But I can offer you my heart, my loyalty, and a promise that I will spend every day trying to make you happy. Rose Garrison, will you marry me?" "Yes," Rose said without hesitation. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They held each other as the sun set, making plans and promises. Two people who had been alone finding home in each other at last. Thomas Garrison returned 3 days later, riding into the yard on a dusty horse and calling out for his sister. He was a tall young man of 21 with the same auburn hair as Rose, and his face went pale with shock when a strange man came out of the house to greet him. "Who are you?" Thomas demanded, his hand moving toward the gun at his hip. "Where is Rose? What have you done with my sister?" "Easy," Liam said, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Your sister is fine. She is inside. My name is Liam Hawthorne, and but before he could finish, Rose appeared in the doorway, moving more slowly than she once had but with a smile on her face. "Thomas, you are home." Thomas rushed past Liam to embrace his sister, holding her carefully as if afraid she might break. "Rose, what happened? You look so thin. Are you all right?" "I am now," Rose said, pulling back to look at her brother. "I got very sick while you were gone, Thomas. Consumption. But Liam found me and brought the doctor and stayed to nurse me back to health. He saved my life." Thomas looked back at Liam with new eyes, gratitude replacing suspicion. "Then I owe you a debt I can never repay." "You owe me nothing," Liam said. "It was my privilege to help your sister." Over supper that night, the whole story came out. Thomas was horrified to learn how sick Rose had been, guilty that he had been away during her crisis. But as he listened to Rose and Liam talk, as he saw the way they looked at each other, he began to understand that something more than a rescue had happened in his absence. Later, after Rose had retired for the night still regaining her strength, Thomas and Liam sat on the porch with cups of coffee. "You are in love with her," Thomas said. "It was not a question." "I am," Liam confirmed. "I have asked her to marry me and she has agreed. I wanted to ask your permission as well, since your father is not here to ask." Thomas studied him for a long moment. "What are your prospects? How do you plan to support my sister?" Liam had been expecting these questions and answered honestly. "I have some money saved from my years of work, enough to buy a small piece of land or invest in a business. I am a hard worker and a quick learner. I will do whatever it takes to provide for Rose and make her happy." "The homestead is hers," Thomas said. "Well, ours legally, but I never wanted to be a rancher. I want to go back to Sacramento, maybe study law. The business I went to settle was about selling father's share in a silver mine. We made a good profit. Rose's half is enough to expand the ranch, hire help, build a real future here." Liam sat up straighter. "I would not marry her for her money or her land." "I know that," Thomas said, and there was approval in his voice. "A man who married for money would not have stayed to nurse a dying woman, would not have risked his own health, would not look at my sister the way you do. You love her for herself, and that is all I need to know. You have my blessing, Liam Hawthorne. Welcome to the family." They shook hands, and Liam felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he had not even known he was carrying. The wedding took place 6 weeks later in late summer of 1878. Rose was fully recovered by then, her strength returned, her laughter bright and frequent. They were married in the small church in Paso Robles, with Dr. Brennan and his wife standing as witnesses alongside Thomas and a few of Rose's friends from town. Rose wore a simple white dress that had been her mother's, altered to fit her slender frame. Liam wore his best clothes, his dark hair neatly trimmed, his heart pounding as he watched Rose walk down the aisle toward him, when the minister asked if he would take Rose to be his wife. Liam's "I do" rang out clear and strong. When Rose said the same words, her voice was soft but unwavering, her eyes locked on his. They kissed as husband and wife for the first time, and the small congregation applauded, happy to witness such obvious love. The celebration afterward was modest but joyful, held in the church hall with food brought by neighbors and friends. Rose had feared she would be shunned for marrying a stranger, a drifter, But instead, people were genuinely happy for her. They remembered how William had abandoned her, how hard she had worked to care for her dying father, how much she deserved happiness. As the afternoon turned to evening, Liam swept Rose into his arms for a dance, and she laughed with pure joy as he spun her around. "I am so happy," she whispered against his shoulder. "I did not think I could be this happy." "Neither did I," Liam admitted, "but I plan to make sure you are this happy every day for the rest of our lives." Thomas left for Sacramento the following week, promising to visit often and to write regularly. He shook Liam's hand and hugged his sister, and there were tears in his eyes as he rode away. But they were good tears, because he knew he was leaving Rose in capable, loving hands. Alone on the homestead, Liam and Rose began building their life together. Liam proved to be everything he had promised: hardworking, dedicated, and deeply loving. He used Rose's inheritance wisely, buying cattle and horses, repairing and expanding the barn, hiring a farmhand named Miguel who became a good friend. The homestead prospered under their joint management. Rose handled the books and the household with quiet efficiency, while Liam managed the livestock and the land. But it was not just a business partnership. Every morning, Liam woke early to bring Rose coffee in bed, stealing kisses and making her laugh. Every evening they sat together on the porch, watching the sunset and talking about their day, their dreams, their future. The physical side of their marriage was a revelation to both of them. Rose had been nervous on their wedding night, but Liam was patient and tender, making sure her first time was filled with love and care rather than pain and duty. As the weeks passed, they grew more comfortable with each other, learning what brought pleasure, what made the other sigh or gasp or whisper their name like a prayer. Their first year of marriage was not without challenges. There was a drought that summer that tested their new cattle operation, and Liam spent long days ensuring the animals had enough water. Rose worked just as hard, managing the household on a tighter budget, preserving every bit of food they could. But they faced each challenge together, and that made all the difference. In the spring of 1879, Rose realized she was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks, but she waited to be certain before telling Liam. When she finally did, on a warm April evening as they prepared for bed, Liam's face went through so many emotions she almost laughed. Shock, joy, fear, wonder, all flickering across his features in rapid succession. "A baby," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "We are going to have a baby." "Yes," Rose confirmed, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. "In late October or early November, Dr. Brennan thinks." Liam dropped to his knees in front of her, pressing his face against her stomach as if he could already feel the child within. "I am going to be a father," he whispered. "Rose, I am going to be a father. You are going to be a wonderful father," Rose said, running her fingers through his hair. "Just as you are a wonderful husband." Liam looked up at her with tears in his eyes. "I love you so much, both of you." The pregnancy was healthy but not easy. Rose suffered from morning sickness for the first 3 months, and Liam hovered anxiously, remembering her illness, terrified something would go wrong. But Dr. Brennan assured them that Rose was strong and healthy, that the baby was growing well, that everything was proceeding normally. As summer turned to fall, Rose's belly grew round and full. Liam was endlessly fascinated by it, by the way the baby moved and kicked, by the changes in Rose's body. He built a cradle with his own hands, working on it in the barn during the evenings, sanding and polishing until it was smooth as silk. Rose prepared the nursery in what had been the spare bedroom, sewing tiny clothes and blankets, washing and folding them with care. Thomas sent gifts from Sacramento. including a beautiful christening gown and a silver rattle that had been in their mother's family. Their son was born on November 3, 1879, after a labor that lasted nearly a full day and night. Liam stayed with Rose throughout, holding her hand, wiping her brow, encouraging her even when she was certain she could not go on. When the baby finally emerged with a lusty cry, Liam wept openly, overwhelmed by the miracle of it. "A boy," Dr. Brennan announced, placing the squalling infant on Rose's chest. "A healthy boy." Rose cradled her son with shaking hands, tears streaming down her face as she looked at the tiny, perfect human they had created. Liam leaned over them both, his arm around Rose, his finger touching the baby's impossibly small hand. The infant gripped it instinctively, and Liam felt his heart expand in a way he had not known was possible. "Hello, little one," Rose whispered. "Hello, my beautiful boy." They named him James after Liam's father, with the middle name Thomas for Rose's brother. James Hawthorne was a good baby, healthy and strong-lunged. He had his mother's sage green eyes and his father's dark hair, and both his parents were utterly besotted with him. Liam proved to be as dedicated a father as he was a husband. He took over more of the household duties so Rose could rest and recover, and he walked the floor with James during the night when the baby was fussy, singing soft lullabies he remembered from his own childhood. Rose watched her husband with their son and fell even more deeply in love with him. She had known Liam was special, had known he would be a good father, but seeing him with James exceeded all her expectations. Thomas came to visit when James was 3 weeks old, and he held his nephew with the cautious reverence of a man unaccustomed to babies. "He is perfect," Thomas said, looking between Rose and Liam with a smile. "You two have made something truly beautiful together." "We have," Rose agreed, leaning into Liam's side as they watched Thomas with James. "We truly have." The years that followed were the happiest of Rose's life. James grew from a baby into a toddler, and then into a bright, curious little boy who followed his father everywhere, learning about horses and cattle and the land. The homestead continued to prosper, becoming one of the most successful ranches in the area. In the spring of 1882, Rose gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Lily Grace. She was smaller than James had been, more delicate with her mother's auburn hair and her father's smile. James, now 2.5, was fascinated by his baby sister and wanted to help with everything, from feeding her to singing her to sleep. 2 years after that, in 1884, they had another son whom they named Samuel. He was the biggest of their babies, with a loud cry and an even louder laugh. Their family was complete, and their house was filled with the beautiful chaos of 3 young children. Liam often found himself standing in the doorway of the sitting room, watching Rose with their children, and marveling at how much his life had changed. 6 years ago, he had been a lonely drifter with no purpose and no home. Now he had everything he had never dared to dream of. A wife he loved more with each passing day, 3 healthy, happy children, a successful ranch, and a sense of belonging he had never thought to find. Rose felt the same wonder. The woman who had been coughing blood on her porch, certain she was dying alone, now had a life overflowing with love and joy. Some nights she would wake in the darkness and reach out to touch Liam, just to reassure herself that he was real, that this was all real. "I am here," Liam would murmur, pulling her close. Always. Their love, which had begun in crisis and grown through care, deepened into something unshakable. They had weathered drought and hard winters, illness and injury, the inevitable struggles of building a life and raising children. Through it all, they never forgot what they meant to each other, never took each other for granted. They still sat on the porch swing in the evenings when they could steal a moment alone, watching the sunset over the same California hills Liam had ridden through that fateful day. They still talked about everything and nothing, still stole kisses when the children were not looking, still held hands like newlyweds. "You ever regret it?" Rose asked one evening in the summer of 1885. They were alone, the children asleep inside, the ranch quiet around them. "Giving up your wandering, settling down?" Liam looked at her as if she had asked him if he regretted breathing. "Not for a single second. You and the children, this life we have built together, this is everything I was searching for when I was drifting. I just did not know it until I found it." "Found me, you mean?" Rose said with a smile. "Found you," Liam agreed, leaning in to kiss her softly. "The best thing that ever happened to me was riding into your yard that day. Even though I was coughing blood and nearly dying, especially then," Liam said seriously. "Because it gave me the chance to help you, to know you, to fall in love with you. Everything good in my life came from that moment." Rose felt tears prick her eyes, the happy kind that came from being loved so completely. "I prayed, you know, that day before you arrived. I was so sick and so scared, and I prayed for help, for someone, anyone to come, and then you did, like an answer to prayer." "Maybe I was," Liam said softly. "Maybe we were answers to each other's prayers." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, rocking gently on the swing, listening to the sounds of the evening. Crickets sang in the grass. A night bird called from the oak tree, and somewhere in the distance, one of the horses whinnied softly. "Tell me about tomorrow," Rose said, a phrase that had become a ritual between them over the years, a way of sharing their dreams and plans. "Tomorrow," Liam said, wrapping his arm around her shoulders, "I am going to finish repairing the fence in the south pasture. James wants to help, so I will teach him how to use a hammer properly. Then I am going to come home to you and our family, and we will have dinner together, and after the children are asleep, I am going to make love to my beautiful wife." Rose laughed, the sound bright in the evening air. "That is a very good tomorrow." "What about you?" Liam asked. "Tell me about your tomorrow." "Tomorrow," Rose said, snuggling closer to him, "I am going to tend my garden and teach Lily how to make bread. I am going to play with Samuel and listen to James tell me all about hammering fence posts with his father. And when evening comes, I am going to count my blessings, every single one, starting with the cowboy who rode into my yard 7 years ago and changed my life forever." Liam kissed the top of her head, his heart full to bursting. "I love you, Rose Hawthorne." "I love you too, Liam Hawthorne, today, tomorrow, and always." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky above Paso Robles, Liam and Rose sat together on their porch, wrapped in each other's arms, grateful for the twists of fate that had brought them together and the love that had made them a family. Inside the house, their 3 children slept peacefully, dreaming children's dreams. In the barn, the animals rested, content and well cared for. The land stretched out around them, their land, the home they had built together through hard work and dedication. It was not a grand life by some standards. There were no riches, no fame, no adventures in distant lands. But it was a good life, a happy life, a life built on love and commitment and the everyday miracles of family. And for Liam and Rose, it was everything. The years continued to roll by, each one bringing its own joys and challenges. James grew into a fine young man, tall and strong like his father, with his mother's kind heart. He took to ranching naturally, learning everything Liam could teach him about managing the land and caring for the animals. Lily became a beauty, with her auburn hair and quick smile, but more importantly, she was smart and curious, always rating, always asking questions. She had her mother's strength and her father's determination, and both her parents knew she would do great things with her life, whatever path she chose. Samuel was the wild one, always getting into mischief, always pushing boundaries. But he was also brave and loyal, the first to defend his siblings, the first to help a neighbor in need. He kept his parents on their toes, but they would not have changed him for the world. Thomas visited regularly from Sacramento, where he had indeed become a lawyer, a good one too. He never married, claiming he was too busy with his work, but Rose suspected it was because he had never found someone who made his heart sing the way Liam made her sing. She hoped he would find that someday, that everyone could be as lucky as she had been. Dr. Brennan remained a good friend to the family, treating their various childhood illnesses and injuries, and marveling at how Rose had gone from that pale, dying woman to the vibrant, healthy mother of 3. "You are a miracle, my dear," he told her once. "A true miracle." "No," Rose said, glancing over at Liam, who was playing with the children in the yard. "He is the miracle. Everything else just followed from him." The ranch continued to grow and prosper. They added more land, more cattle, and eventually started breeding horses as well. Liam had a gift for it, producing strong, intelligent animals that were in high demand throughout California. The Hawthorne Ranch became known throughout the region, a symbol of what hard work and dedication could achieve. But for all their success, Liam and Rose never forgot where they had come from, never forgot the kindness that had saved Rose's life. They were generous with their neighbors, always willing to lend a hand or offer help to those in need. When drought struck one year and several families were struggling, Liam and Rose opened their stores, sharing what they had so no one would go hungry. "We were given a gift," Rose explained to her children when Lily asked why they were giving away so much. "When I was dying, your father chose to stay and help me, a complete stranger. He gave me my life back. The least we can do is help others when we can." The children understood, and as they grew, they carried that lesson with them, becoming generous and kind-hearted in their own right. In 1890, when James was nearly 11, he asked his parents to tell him the story of how they met. They were sitting at the dinner table after a meal, the dishes cleared, the evening peaceful. Liam and Rose exchanged glances, and then Rose began the tale. She told them about being sick, about being alone and frightened, about collapsing on the porch and looking up to see a stranger dismounting from his horse. Liam picked up the story, describing his decision to ride for the doctor, his fear that she would die before he returned, his choice to stay and care for her even though it meant risking his own health. The children listened, rapt, even though they had heard versions of the story before. But this time, their parents told it in full detail, holding nothing back about how sick Rose had been, how uncertain her recovery, how deep their love had grown during those weeks of care. "So you fell in love while Mama was sick?" Lily asked, her romantic heart clearly captured by the story. "We did," Liam confirmed, reaching across the table to take Rose's hand. "I knew she was special the moment I saw her, even though she was very ill. And the more I got to know her, the more certain I became that she was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. And I fell in love with him because he stayed," Rose added, squeezing Liam's hand. "Because he was kind and gentle and patient, because he saw me at my worst and did not run away, because he made me feel safe and cherished." "That is the most romantic story ever," Lily sighed. "That is the scariest story ever," Samuel said. "Mama almost died, but she did not," James said seriously. "Because Papa saved her." "Right, Papa, I helped," Liam said. "But your mother saved herself too. She fought to live, fought to get better. She is the strongest person I know." Rose felt tears well up in her eyes at her husband's words. Even after all these years, he could still make her feel like the most special woman in the world. That night, after the children were in bed, Liam and Rose lay together in their room, holding each other close. "We have made a good life," Rose murmured into the darkness. "A really good life." "We have," Liam agreed. "And it is not over yet. We have many more years ahead of us, many more memories to make, many more sunsets to watch," Rose added. "Many more kisses to steal," Liam said, suiting action to words. Rose laughed against his lips, then kissed him back with all the love and passion that still burned between them after 12 years of marriage. They made love slowly, tenderly, reaffirming the bond that had sustained them through everything. And afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, they drifted off to sleep, content and happy and grateful for every moment they had together. The turn of the century brought changes to California and to Paso Robles. The railroad expanded, bringing more people and more commerce. The town grew, adding new businesses and services. The Wild West was becoming less wild, more settled, more civilized. But the Hawthorne Ranch remained a constant, a piece of the old frontier even as the world changed around it. Liam and Rose adapted to the changes where necessary, but they held fast to the values that had always guided them: hard work, honesty, kindness, and love. In 1898, when James was 18, he told his parents he wanted to go to college, to study agriculture and business so he could bring new ideas back to the ranch. Liam and Rose were proud of his ambition and sent him off with their blessing and enough money for tuition and expenses. Lily, at 16, announced she wanted to be a teacher. She had always loved learning, and the idea of passing that love on to others appealed to her. Rose helped her prepare, and the following year, Lily went to study at the normal school in San Jose. Samuel, 14 and still figuring out his path, stayed on the ranch to help his father. He was a natural cowboy, happiest on horseback, and Liam suspected he would be the one to take over the ranch someday, though there was no rush. Liam was only 43 and had many good years ahead of him. With the older children away, the house felt emptier, but Liam and Rose found they enjoyed this new phase of their life. They had time for each other again, time to take long rides across their land, time to travel to visit the children at school, time to simply be together. "We are getting old," Rose said one evening, though at 42 she was still beautiful, her auburn hair showing only a few threads of silver, her figure still trim and strong. "Speak for yourself," Liam teased, pulling her close. "I feel like a young man whenever I am with you." "Flatterer," Rose accused, but she was smiling. "Truth teller," Liam corrected. "You are as beautiful now as you were the day I married you, more so even because now your beauty is enriched by all the years we have shared, all the love we have built." Rose kissed him soundly. "How did I get so lucky to find you?" "I think I am the lucky one," Liam said. "After all, I was just a drifter with nothing to offer. You gave me everything: a home, a family, a purpose, a reason to wake up grateful every morning." They held each other as the sun set on another day, another year, another decade of their life together. The porch swing creaked gently beneath them, a sound as familiar as their own heartbeats. In 1901, James graduated from college and returned to the ranch with new ideas for crop rotation and irrigation. He also brought home a fiancée, a sweet young woman named Margaret whom he had met at school. They were married that fall in the same small church where Liam and Rose had wed 23 years earlier. Rose cried happy tears as she watched her son pledge his life to the woman he loved, remembering her own wedding day, her own vows, the beginning of her own great love story. Lily became a teacher, just as she had dreamed, and moved to a small town east of Paso Robles to run a one-room schoolhouse. She loved her work and wrote long letters home about her students and their progress. Samuel continued to work the ranch alongside his father and brother, growing into a man as strong and capable as Liam, with a gift for handling even the most difficult horses. The ranch thrived under the combined efforts of 3 generations. James and Margaret moved into the foreman's house on the property, and in 1902, they made Liam and Rose grandparents for the first time with the birth of a baby girl they named Rose, after her grandmother. Holding her tiny namesake in her arms, Rose was overwhelmed with emotion. She thought back to that day in 1878 when she had been coughing blood on her porch, certain she was dying, certain she would never have a husband, children, grandchildren, a life full of love and joy and meaning. "Thank you," she whispered to Liam that night as they prepared for bed. "Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for giving me all of this. Thank you for letting me," Liam said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for taking a chance on a wandering cowboy with nothing but love to offer." "It was the best chance I ever took," Rose said. They made love that night with the tenderness of long familiarity and the passion that had never faded between them. Even after 24 years of marriage, they still desired each other, still found joy in each other's touch, still whispered words of love and devotion in the darkness. The years continued their steady march. More grandchildren came, filling the ranch with laughter and life. Lily eventually married a fellow teacher and had children of her own. Samuel fell in love with a rancher's daughter from a neighboring property, and their wedding was a grand celebration that brought together both families and half the county. Liam and Rose watched their children and grandchildren with pride and joy, marveling at the legacy they had created. But more than that, they continued to cherish each other, to prioritize their relationship even amid the busy fullness of their life. They still sat on the porch swing every evening when weather permitted. They still talked about everything and nothing. They still held hands and stole kisses and looked at each other with eyes full of love. In 1910, on their 32nd wedding anniversary, Liam took Rose to San Francisco for a week, just the two of them. It was the longest they had been away from the ranch since they had built it together, but their children insisted, assuring them that everything would be fine in their absence. In the city, they stayed in a fine hotel, ate in restaurants, went to the theater, and walked along the waterfront hand in hand like newlyweds. It was wonderful, but they were both happy to return home, to their land, to their family. "We have had an extraordinary life," Rose said as they rode back to the ranch in the hired buggy, the familiar hills coming into view. "More than I ever dreamed possible." "We have," Liam agreed, his arm around her shoulders. "And we are not done yet. We have years left, Rose. Years to enjoy our family, to watch our grandchildren grow, to keep loving each other." "Promise me something," Rose said, suddenly serious. She turned to look at him, this man who had been her husband for 32 years, who had saved her life and given her everything good. "Promise me that no matter what happens, no matter how many years we have, we will always remember this. Remember us. Remember how we started, how we built this life, how much we love each other." "I promise," Liam said, cupping her face in his hand. "I could never forget." "You are written on my heart, Rose Hawthorne. Every beat belongs to you." They kissed there in the buggy, long and deep, and when they pulled apart, both had tears on their cheeks, the good kind that came from being so full of love there was no containing it. The ranch came into view, and they could see their family gathered in the yard to welcome them home. James and Margaret with their children, Samuel and his wife with theirs, and even Lily and her family, who had made the trip to surprise them. "Look at that," Liam said softly. "Look at what we made, Rose. Not just the ranch, not just the buildings and the land. That, them, our family, our legacy." All because you rode into my yard that day, Rose said, her voice choked with emotion. All because you chose to stay. Best decision I ever made, Liam said. The only decision that ever really mattered. As the buggy pulled up to the house, and their family surrounded them with hugs and welcomes and laughter, Liam and Rose held hands, their fingers interlaced, their hearts beating in the same rhythm they had shared for more than 3 decades. Years later, when they were both old and gray but still together, still in love, still holding hands on their porch swing, they would tell their grandchildren and great-grandchildren the story of how they met. They would tell them about the coughing blood, the desperate ride for the doctor, the long weeks of recovery, and the love that grew from care and devotion. And the children would listen, wide-eyed, to this tale of romance and rescue, of prayer answered and love found, of a cowboy who rode into a dying woman's yard and chose to stay, chose to fight for her life, chose to love her with everything he had. It became a family legend, passed down through the generations. The story of Liam and Rose, the cowboy and the woman he saved, who built an empire of love that lasted long after they were gone. But before that, before they became legend, they lived. They laughed and cried, worked and played, raised their family and grew old together. They weathered the storms life threw at them, celebrated the joys, and never, ever took each other for granted. In 1925, on their 47th wedding anniversary, Liam woke before dawn as was his habit. He was 70 now, his dark hair completely silver, his face lined with age but his eyes still bright. He looked over at Rose, still sleeping beside him as she had for 47 years, and his heart swelled with love. She was 71 now, her auburn hair white as snow, her body frailer than it once was. But to him, she was still the most beautiful woman in the world, still the love of his life, still the best thing that ever happened to him. He reached out and gently touched her cheek, marveling that he got to wake up next to her, that he had been granted so many years with her, that the woman who had been dying on her porch all those years ago was still here, still his. Rose stirred, her eyes opening to meet his. Even blurred with sleep, they were still that beautiful sage green that had captured his heart. "Good morning, my love," Liam said softly. "Good morning," Rose replied, reaching for his hand. 47 years. 47 years, Liam confirmed, and I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Even the part where I was coughing blood on my porch, Rose teased, as she had teased him about it many times over the years. Especially that part, Liam said seriously, because that was the day my life really began. That was the day I found you. They rose together, dressed together, and walked out to their porch to watch the sunrise together, as they had done thousands of times before. The ranch was quiet in the early morning, peaceful and beautiful. "Tell me about tomorrow," Rose said, the ritual question that had sustained them through nearly 5 decades of marriage. "Tomorrow," Liam said, "I am going to wake up next to you. I am going to tell you I love you. I am going to spend another day grateful for every moment I have with you. And then I am going to do it all again the next day, and the day after that, for as long as we have." "That sounds perfect," Rose said, leaning her head on his shoulder. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Two people who had loved each other through sickness and health, through hardship and prosperity, through youth and old age. Whatever time they had left, whether it was days or months or years, they would face it together, just as they had faced everything together since that fateful day in 1878 when a drifting cowboy rode into a dying woman's yard and chose to stay. That choice, that single decision to help a stranger, to care for someone in need, to open his heart to love, had changed both their lives forever. It had created a family, built a legacy, and written a love story that would endure long after they were gone. And as the sun rose fully over the California hills, bathing the Hawthorne ranch in golden light, Liam and Rose held hands and smiled, grateful for every moment, every memory, every year they had shared. Their story had begun with blood and prayer, with fear and faith, with a cowboy and a woman who was dying. But it had become so much more than that. It had become a testament to the power of love, the strength of commitment, and the beautiful things that can grow when two hearts choose each other, every single day for a lifetime. And that, more than anything, was the true miracle of Liam and Rose Hawthorne.